If you're watching this video, you're probably a backpacker in Australia looking to get work for your 88 days, or you're considering doing a working holiday visa. I'm Lindsay, I'm an American backpacker, and I'm finishing up my 88 days in Tasmania. I've been here for about 4 months, and I'm going to tell you everything you need to know and everything that I wish I knew before I came. So stay tuned, because I will give you all the information, the pros and cons of living in Tasmania, different parts of Tasmania to live in and not live in. And I will be breaking down working in Tasmania. I will give you a few specific names of companies that are hiring, the types of work. There are so many options that I personally experienced, as well as being part of the backpacker community. I know a ton of other people who have had these jobs, so I can give you the best information possible. I'll also be getting into the question of, do you need a car to live in Tasmania, or can you do it without one, and how to find that work-life balance and have the best possible social life, find your tribe, and do cool things on the weekends, because, you know, what's the point of a working holiday visa without the holiday part? The first thing you need to figure out is Tasmania the right choice for you? There are so many benefits to living here. One of them is it's just like an amazing, beautiful place. It's a remote island off the coast of Australia, but it is also civilized. Like, there are cities here, you're not completely off the grid, but you can drive like 20 minutes in any direction and just be in the most pristine, beautiful nature that you've ever seen in the world. Rolling hills, white sand beaches, you know, the whole lot. There's rainforests, mountains. It's truly amazing. Another reason is that there's a ton of seasonal work here. I know so many people who have been having a really hard time on the mainland. There's a ton of backpackers right now. Everyone's trying to find work, so a lot of people come here and are actually able to get the work that they need for their 88 days. And another benefit is, unlike being in the outback, it is still an island, so while parts of it are really remote, usually you can drive to a city, especially where a lot of the work is. You can drive to a city like within an hour. And even like, I live in Devonport, which is a very small city, but I have all of my needs met. I could go to KFC if I want. You know, I don't feel like I'm out in the middle of nowhere. But I'm also being able to find all that work on the farms, get out there, get my hands dirty, and get my 88 days. The negative parts of living in Tasmania would be that it can be isolating. Like, there's only 500,000 people on this island, and it's a bigger island than you initially think. So yeah, there's going to be like some towns that have very few people, and there might be jobs there, but you're going to be kind of isolated. So definitely a lot of places that if you have a car, your life's going to be a lot easier. And if you like to party, this is probably not the place for you. I've been able to go out to bars on the weekends with some friends. There's going to be stuff open, but even like, there's one club in town with a DJ, and it's not a crazy party scene. You know, it is what it is. But if you're fine just like going to a brewery with some people from work, and that's like okay for you to have as your social life for the months that you're here, good on ya. Like, perfect. If you need to be out in the clubs every weekend, you're not gonna like it. Let's get into the different places you could live and work in Tasmania. Let's start off with the entire West Coast, or as I like to say, West Coast, worst coast. The West Coast would probably be really tough to live in. There's very few people on that side of the island, and the weather is not amazing. That's where the wind blows in from the west side, so it's going to be very wet and breezy and cold compared to the rest of Tasmania. It might be nice in the summer, but I think if you're living and working out there, you're going to be isolated. You definitely need a car. Maybe if you really enjoy being remote, you really like camping, off-roading, beautiful place, you can make it work, but I think for the majority of people, not the ideal move. The main city in Tasmania is Hobart. It has a pretty decent population, and I think if you were going to try to do a working holiday without owning your own vehicle, you would want to stay in Hobart, because there's public transit, you're able to get around. Also, the Huon Valley near Hobart, which is where a lot of the jobs are, there's berry farms and a lot of apple picking out that way. From Hobart, there is the second biggest city, Launceston. I might say that wrong, just call it Lonnie to be fair. And that's all right. It's gonna be a lot less nightlife. You can still do public transit around the city, but if you're living out that way, I'd probably want to have a car, especially to get to the farms. It's going to be a little less easier. There are some really beautiful places. One of my favorite hangout spots in Tazzy is Cataract Gorge. There's a hike there, there's a swimming pool, as well as a lake that you can swim in, and it's just absolutely beautiful and completely free because this country knows how to use their tax dollars for public good. And then where I live, in the north part, the north coast, I live in Devonport, so kind of right in the middle. There's a ton of towns that you could live in: Ulverston, Penguin, that's a real place. There's a town called Penguin, and it's amazing. Anywhere on the northwest coast, you are definitely going to need a car. But that's where I live. It's amazing. I live in the east side of Devonport, so I'm able to get to like everything I need without being too isolated. Now let's get into the jobs. So, berry picking. This is the job I wish I got, because I know so many people who have worked at various different berry farms. The thing is, if you want to do this, you're going to want to get into Tasmania around the end of November, start of December. I arrived towards February, so all these jobs were already snatched up by the time I got here. The season ends around January. But I know people who work. 3 main employers for berry picking would be Lynx Employment, which is a labor hire service. You can apply online. They have various different jobs, a lot of berry picking. The second one would be Costa Berry Farm. They are located closer to me in Devonport, and they hire a ton of people. I have roommates who work there, and they're very good about giving them consistent hours, as well as offering piece rate. If you're really good at berry picking, you can make more money than the hourly by doing the piece rate, and if you turn out to be not as good as it, they'll usually find something else for you to do and get an hourly rate, so either way you're getting fair pay. Then Reed Fruits near Hobart is another berry farm. I don't know anyone specifically who's worked there, but I know they also hire a lot of people. What I did personally for work is working through a labor hire company. The company I went through was called Left Field. They're located mostly like around the Devonport area, but I think they do have a few opportunities elsewhere. So if you do find yourself living somewhere else, you could probably reach out and see if they have anything available. With this company, I was able to do a lot of different jobs and try things out. So I planted cauliflower, harvested cauliflower, picked potatoes, and worked at an onion factory. The good thing about going through a labor hire is if one job kind of dries up, the season ends, the farm doesn't need help anymore, they slide you right into another one. The bad thing is that sometimes the work can be inconsistent, especially depending on the season you come, and obviously some of the work is going to be weather dependent. So if you do work for a labor hire, I would make it very clear to them how many days you want, and if you're not getting the hours you need, find another job. For me, I did the cauliflower harvesting and cauliflower planting. It's very physically demanding work, not the most fun, but I did that at the start to get me through, and then they were able to get me a more permanent position in an onion factory where I was getting solid hours, being able to work inside. And when it comes to factory work, it does count towards your visa. A lot of jobs, if they're like considered within agriculture, make sure to double check, but I did have a lot of coworkers who were also working holiday makers, so I knew that it counted for the visa. And then when it comes to factory work, there's these are good jobs sometimes because they can offer you the consistency that you need to get your 88 days done. You want to be working 5 days a week so you can claim it as 7, as long as you're over, I believe, 35 hours. Of course, double check on any visa requirements. You could have a different visa than me. So when you're starting a job, you want to double check, make sure everything is within the requirements for your visa so that you're not missing out. But yeah, within factory work, I never saw myself doing it, but I actually really liked it. And there are some other jobs available within this type of work. If you go on Indeed or Seek, you want to type in process worker, and they'll pop up. There is, I think, a salmon factory that hires a lot of people, as well as Simplot, which makes chips, or as I would call them, French fries. And I know some people also who are working in meat processing, which I think does pay a little more sometimes, but you have to be touching all that meet, so take it as you will. If you're here for a longer term stay, there are some oyster farms that I've seen on Seek that are hiring. They just want people who can commit to at least 6 months, which is why I never did it, because it's my first year visa. I have different places in Australia I want to see. I would consider that if I come back to do my 6 months. If you have a forklift license or are willing to get a forklift license, there are also a ton of jobs that are hiring. Most of them do prefer a little bit of experience, but you might be able to squeeze your way in if you have a little less, because they really do need people out here who have that certification. So that's another thing to consider, and then you might be able to get paid a little bit more. I'm going to put some info on the screen now so you guys can take a screenshot if you need to. Alright, now let's get into the big question. Do you need a car? In my opinion, you are going to have a much better time in Tasmania if you have a car. Most of the jobs are going to be without of the city. The only way I reasonably see you living without a car is I know some people in working hostels who are able to carpool with other people. So that is one option. Other than that, though, you really do need a car, in my opinion. And you can get them pretty cheap on Facebook Marketplace. That's what I did, and I'm selling it before I leave. The car market is pretty hot on Facebook Marketplace over here, so you should easily be able to find something. A lot of backpackers coming and going, so you can buy from another backpacker. The cars will usually be in pretty good condition. They're not selling them because of any issues. They're just selling them because they're leaving. So yeah, decent car market. You can probably get something between like $2,000, $2,500 easy. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was having a social life. I didn't really have much of a social life when I first got here. It was when I started working at the onion factory. I found a few friends that are coworkers, and we go out sometimes on the weekends. It's really important to like put yourself out there, be the one to make plans, because sometimes everyone is kind of in the same boat where like you're all backpackers. Not everyone knows a lot of people. A lot of people want to do things, but they don't really know how to start it. You're gonna be working with a ton of people from all over the world. But like just because people are from different countries than you doesn't mean that you're not going to be friends. Like you all have a lot in common. You're all living and working in Tasmania. You're all in the backpacker hustle, getting your money, getting your days done. So it can be a vibe, but be the one to like reach out if there's not a lot going on. Be like, hey, anyone want to go bowling this weekend? Anyone want to go to the brewery? And be mindful, a lot of restaurants and things close really early here. So just note that, make your plans in advance. And then there's a lot of cool nature things to see. So if you like nature, look for the national parks, go on hikes. When I first got here, what I did is I took a tour through a company called Under Down Under. It was like one of the best weeks of my life. They just took us here, there, everywhere. We went to like Freycinet, Cradle Mountain, all of these places. Sometimes I just like look up tourist attractions on Google Maps and I find something. I went to Platypus House. That was awesome. I got to see platypuses up close, as well as echidnas, which is awesome. But yeah, there's no shortage of things to do, especially if you like nature. Alright, I think that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you've watched this far, please give me a like and consider subscribing as it helps me out. And if you have lived in Tasmania, drop more info in the comments for everyone, what you did for work, any tips, tricks, or places to visit. That'd be awesome. And if you're considering coming to Tasmania, drop where you're from in the comments. Say hey. Alright, thank you for watching.